The Talking Technicians podcast highlights MNT Technicians, a MNT-EC Live 2021 recorded presentation by Peter Kararinoff. Who am I? I'm Peter, and I'm faculty at Portland Community College. I teach engineering and engineering technology. I'm also the co-PI of MNTech. And at MNTech, I both work on a podcast as well as work on a journal, and I also serve on the outreach working group. 3 takeaways for today's presentation. Number 1, MNTech has a podcast. Number 2, podcasts can be used as curriculum in your classroom. And number 3, you can contribute to MNTech's podcast. What is a podcast, and why would MNTech make one? A podcast is a radio show that you can listen to on demand using your cell phone, tablet, or computer. Why would MNTech produce a podcast? Podcasts are a way for ATE projects and centers to disseminate their findings, and it's a way to share stories with both students, faculty, and ATE project staff. MNTech's podcast is called Talking Technicians. Our tagline is real stories from real technicians with real jobs. Talking Technicians is about technicians, and in each episode, you'll hear an interview with a working technician. You'll learn who are technicians, you'll learn where do technicians come from, and you'll learn what do technicians do. These are interviews with working technicians at companies like Intel, Micron, Lawrence Livermore National Lab, NASA, as well as some smaller startups. Each episode features a different guest, and they share their story of how they became a technician and what they do day to day in their jobs. I also ask them about what it feels like their first day of work, and if they have any advice for people who would like to transition careers or become a technician like they are. The Talking Technicians podcast is available on all major podcast players. This includes Apple Podcasts on your iPhone or iPad, Google Podcasts on either your Android phone or your tablet, and also on Spotify if you're using something like an Amazon Alexa device. In order to find the Talking Technicians podcasts, all you need to do is open up your podcast player and search for Talking Technicians. Our podcasts should come up, and then you'll be able to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss any of the episodes. You'll know that you're in the right podcast because you'll see our yellow Talking Technicians logo with the MNTech logo in the lower right. As of the recording of this presentation, we have 12 different podcast episodes available for you to listen to, and we're going to start season number 2 in the fall. The Talking Technicians podcast is also available on MNTech's YouTube channel. Each one of the podcasts has been converted to a video, and that video has the audio of the podcast recording. Each of the podcast episodes can also be found on MNTech's website. Go to MNTech's main website, select Students and Parents, and then under Student Successes, select the drop-down that says Talking Technicians. You can also use the search bar on MNTech's website and search for either podcast or Talking Technicians. Here is an excerpt from a Talking Technicians podcast episode. So tell me a little bit more about the National Ignition Facility. That sounds incredibly dangerous. What is it?
So the goal of the National Ignition Facility is to create fusion energy, which is what the sun runs off of. So we're trying to create a mini sun in our target chamber. And how we do this is we point 192 beams onto a small hull rum, which is a target that's roughly the size of a pencil eraser. And
so that was an example of some of the things that you'll hear in the Talking Technicians podcast. So tell me. Takeaway number 2 is that podcasts can be used as curriculum in your classrooms. How can you use podcasts with your students? Well, podcasts could be assigned as a listening assignment. Just like textbook reading is assigned, a podcast could be assigned as an assignment for students to listen to, and then questions can be written for students to answer. You could also give students the option of listening to any of the Talking Technician podcast episodes and asking them if they feel like they identify with any of the guests that they hear. In addition, a podcast could be assigned as a reporting assignment. This could be an individual assignment where a student produces a podcast episode and submits an audio file as the result of their assignment, or this could also be a group assignment where a group of students collaboratively together create a podcast episode. This could be in the form of an interview, like in Talking Technicians, or a panel discussion with many different students adding to the episode. There are other ways that you can use podcasts in your classroom too. If you think of any innovative ideas or you are using podcasts in your classroom, please get in touch with me. I'd love to hear how you incorporate podcasts into your courses. The third takeaway is that you can contribute to MNT-EC's podcast. There are a number of ways you can contribute if you're interested in podcasts or you hear something that you like. One is that you could connect us with a podcast guest. Send us an email at info@talkingtechnicians.org or send me a personal email to peter.kazarnoff@pcc.edu. You can just listen and share podcast episodes with your colleagues, friends, and students. You can simply do this by opening up your podcast player and listening to Talking Technicians. You can also use podcasts in your class, like I mentioned before, either as an assignment for students to listen to or an assignment for students to create. Podcasts could also be incorporated into professional development opportunities for other faculty. Thank you so much for listening and watching this presentation about the Talking Technicians podcast. As a reminder, if you've got any guests who are working technicians that you think would be great for our podcast, please send an email to info@talkingtechnicians.org or send me an email personally at peter.kazarnoff@pcc.edu.